All right. Hello, everyone in the cryptoverse. My name is Lauren Lance. I'm the founder and CEO of Breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs is a blockchain analytics company. We provide investigation and monitoring tools that's accessible to everybody. This is our first show, so welcome and thank you for taking the time to join in. Breadcrumbs has been around a while, but we decided to put together a monthly show to, for a few reasons. We see a real need for the community. And so the first thing is we're very much about the community and providing investigation monitoring tools to the community. And we wanted to have the ability to interact with the community. So as we go through the show, feel free to put your comments, questions in the chat box. We're going to set aside a bit of time at the end for questions. And I'll be happy to answer questions for people in our community. As well, imagine if it was like Photoshop and 1995 or 2000, and you just get plopped down with, the software of Photoshop, but you have it's a whole new way of creating images and visuals. So we decided to, education is a big piece in being able how to use breadcrumbs. Like for breadcrumbs, we're creating a whole new way of being able to investigate and monitor crypto. And, it's not just one day you pick it up and start using it. There's a bit of an education, a learning curve. Even people that have been using our tools for a long time now, they still keep discovering features and functionality that makes their work much better. So that's another important goal of this show, is to educate and show you guys in the community how you can get the most out of using breadcrumbs. It's not just a matter of using breadcrumbs, but there's this whole other world of crypto. What's DeFi? What is Tornado Cash, a mixer, or play to earn, or an ICO? How do you spot a multi-sig wallet? There's, every day this industry moves so fast. It's like 2 full-time jobs just to be able to keep up with all the new technologies. And we're going to spend a bit of time as well, not just educating on how to use breadcrumbs, but also how to make sense of all the new innovative technologies or issues that are coming up in crypto. And I want to make it very clear, we don't want to share opinions. We don't want to try and convince people of things. That's up to you to figure out what your opinion is. But more so, we just want to educate on facts. And that's a key thing there. So a lot of the education we're going to do will be based on just showing facts or the technology. And we'll leave it up to you to figure out how you want to make sense of that data. And as well, in future episodes, we're also going to be highlighting some guests, some of our users that have been getting a lot of value out of breadcrumbs, and we're going to share their stories, let them share their stories. People can ask them questions, and also highlight how they've been using breadcrumbs to, create a lot of value for the work they do, or just even in their own lives. So that could be from people in doing full-time crypto investigations to people doing there are some law enforcement, there are some people in our community as well. It's a whole mix, but the key thing is it's all very accessible. So we have everybody who exists in this industry, every type of person is using breadcrumbs, and we're going to highlight a lot of those different stories. So this is kind of the intro to the show. That's where we see the Follow the Breadcrumb show, providing value and bringing a lot of value to if you're on the East Coast, to your daily lunch. If you're on the West Coast in North America, then it would be your your breakfast or your coffee. All right, so I guess let's get on with the show. So today's show it's just going to be me. It's going to be a lot of sharing my story, sort of a precursor of how we came about with all of this breadcrumbs. Where did this all come from? And a lot of my journey through crypto. I've been in crypto since 2012. Back then, a lot of people ask, well, how did you hear about crypto or Bitcoin? It's kind of random. I was working in Silicon Valley in a co-working space, and I was working on a mobile wallet, which, today it's quite common. You have like crypto debit cards. And so I actually built a prototype to that back in 2012. And the guy sitting next to me one day, he's like, hey, you want to come to the Bitcoin meetup? I'm like, what is that? And, at the time, Bitcoin was at $4. It just crashed from $24 from the Bitcoinica hack. And so I go to this Bitcoin meetup, and it's about 2 months into Coinbase. Brian Armstrong was there. He was giving out like coupon codes for people to sign up to Coinbase. Let's see, Roger Ver was there. It was a few months into BitInstant. You want to look up what happened to BitInstant, you can also look up Charlie Shrem, who was there. Who else is? Oh yeah, there's a guy by the name of Jared McKenna, Jed McCaleb. This is about a year or two before Ripple. And it's funny. It's like a common story of people going into crypto is like, your first impression is like, this is all crazy. And that was my first impression after that Bitcoin meetup. Was like, people are all crazy. I mean, there's this exciting energy in this world, but it just seems, wow, it's like you don't know what to make of it. And follow along the journey. After that, I was around Silicon Valley for a few years, and it was just like crypto kept pulling me in. I built a Bitcoin POS system, and then one day somebody asked, "Hey, do you want to, do a presentation on Bitcoin and payments?" Sure. Go do a presentation, and the guy in the audience is like, "Hey, you want to come do that same presentation, but Bitcoin 101 for my company?" Sure. And then next thing you know, I'm doing presentations at PayPal, Computer Associates, all these places. And that led me to summer of 2014, O'Reilly Media was looking at getting into the Bitcoin education game. And so they invited me down. It's kind of a random story, but eventually I ended up becoming the technical editor for, Andreas's very popular book called Mastering Bitcoin. So I think my name is somewhere in there in the, like in the early parts of the book. And that's really, how I really got into the Bitcoin rabbit hole. That was back in 2014. Fast forward to 2015, I raised a little bit of money and moved to the Philippines and did like a Bitcoin remittance company because I thought Bitcoin was gonna fix remittances, and quickly realized it wasn't. But needless to say, I was working on crypto and trying to fix these problems with remittances. Fast forward to 2017, and that was the ICO craze. I think that was the second or third bubble I was part of. And in the ICO craze, it was just like investors are coming to me and they're like, hey, Bitcoin, you've been around a while. Why don't you invest in ICOs or figure out how to make money out of this? And so I was like, okay. So I put together some trading tech, started building some arbitrage bots and trying to figure out how to make this all work. And along the way, you're investing in a lot of different ICOs, and like most people in 2017, 2018, invested in ICO that turned out to be a scam. I'm sure you can read all about it. It's all very public. And if you've ever been through a situation like that, it's extremely emotionally draining. It's very emotional. It's not just the financial ruin of it, but it's also the emotional toll that it takes on you. And so I was very, very determined to put together an investigation to prove out where the funds went. And so I started doing my research. I went to all the companies that the incumbents that make these type of tools. And, the response I got back was, sorry, it's only for law enforcement, or it's $30,000 a year license fee. Yeah. I'm not an enterprise. Like I'm just some guy, who invested some money. And I'm not going to fork over 30K to, basically it felt like I got scammed all over again. So at that moment, I decided, you know what, I'm going to build this tool myself and make sure there's always a free version available, not just for myself, but for everybody else. No one should ever have to go through that situation again. And so that was in January of 2019. And so, I did what I could to live as lean as possible and give myself a lot of breathing room to just build. I just started coding. A lot of it is these emotions of, trying to get your funds back or trying to help the investors from the scam. And I just kept building and building breadcrumbs, what it was back then. And, like the way it was back then, breadcrumbs, the first version, it took like 10 minutes to load a page. I'll show you a demo a bit later, but like, those, like this is how difficult and how determined I was to, to solve this problem for myself. And about a year and a half later, it was like, okay, the tool's starting to get a little bit better. And some other people in the space who had similar issues, they started using the tool. And other people started using the tool. And occasionally here and there, we'd be able to help out some other people who were similar situations. And sure enough, like over those early years, the first couple years, two of those groups of people that we helped out were actually, like frauds over $100 million. Like these are issues, that law enforcement should have the resources to solve. But even then, it's, it was a challenge. And we were able to help them out, and it was extremely fulfilling. But the key thing was, with every single experience that we went through in helping people, with breadcrumbs, we took that knowledge and put it back into the tool. And that's the great thing is, with breadcrumbs, we start from the bottom up, from retail up to SMB. But in actually building the technology and building the tools, we built it with community in mind. We built it for retail, and with retail in mind, that means you want the tool to be easy to use. You want it to, you shouldn't have to have a data science degree to know how to use these tools. And so that was what, a couple of years ago. It's crazy to think, this journey. And so after we helped out quite a lot of people back in November of last year, investors, we raised a seed round of 1.6 million. That's all public. And from there, we were off to the races. We hired some engineers. We hired some great people to join our team. And since then, we've just been building out and iterating on making these tools, these investigation and monitoring tools, just even better for the community, for the crypto community. So that's kind of the personal journey of like how we got from, my early days to, breadcrumbs to now, like this tool is bringing immense value to people every day. We've got lots of users using our investigation tools and sharing them on Twitter. I think if you're on Twitter right now, you might see, I think Zach just dropped another investigation of his own, including some of our breadcrumbs visuals. So with that in mind, would you guys like to see a demo? All right, and feel free, in the chat box. I can see questions coming in. Feel free to just add whatever questions, and at the end of the show, we can do some Q&A and answer some questions. Great. So part of this that I'd like to share right now, I'm going to share my screen, is really around, how can you get the most out of breadcrumbs? Okay, yeah, Outlier Group. Thanks for the shout out. Okay, so if you're new to breadcrumbs, what are some of the things that you can really do with it? Well, the first thing that most people like to use is our investigation tool. We support Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon. Recently, we just started supporting Ronin, amazing community from the Axie Infinity group. So in this example, what I'll do is just search up the Ukraine government. So this is the Ukraine government donation page. And anytime you look up a crypto address, it always starts at hop 0. Very much in our visualization tool, we want to make it very simple and easy to consume the data. Because again, you shouldn't have to have a data science degree, or you shouldn't have to be an engineer to be able to make sense of the crypto data. So a lot of times people are trying to ask, either where did the money go or where did the money come from? So we sort the data with that in mind. Everything that's on the right here is where the data went. Everything that's on the left here is where the funds came from. Everything on the left are where the funds incoming, and everything on the right is funds outgoing. And so, of course, this is the Ukraine government donation address. So everything on the left are people making donations. Everything on the right is what the Ukraine government did with those funds. Another key point that most people don't realize is we also sort the addresses here from top to bottom. So the address that's at the top is the one that's donated the most amount of funds. Second most amount of funds, third most, etc. Most of the funds went out to this address, second most here. And so it's kind of a nice little story. You can see here, actually, it's kind of neat. I'm going to refresh the screen again because this address here that's at the top has quite a few different ENS addresses. ENS stands for Ethereum Name Service. And so a lot of people self-declare, kind of like a www website. A lot of people like to create their own ENS address. So for example, mine personal is lauren.e. This one here, one of the ENS addresses that this person's own is Vitalik. So of course, Vitalik Buterin. And if you click on any path in between two addresses, we're going to show you the transactions, between those two addresses. And so the person who donated the most amount of funds, of course, was Vitalik. But it's kind of an interesting story here. The war, I think the war started around late February 24th or so. So a couple weeks later, March 3rd, March 4th, you can see here the Ukraine government donation page, donation address started sending random tokens to Vitalik. It's kind of like, hey, Vitalik, just letting you know that we're here, And then on April 4th, 2022, Vitalik made a donation of 750 ETH, which at the time was 2.6 million US. And so, I haven't really done much here, but you can kind of get a good sense of the stories that are taking place. Another interesting story here is, well, people always ask, hey, what's this censored token thing? What's this address here? Well, if you just kind of highlight over any address in breadcrumbs, you see we have this little container box. And this container has a lot of powerful options that you can do with it. So for example, if you want to see more details about that address, we have what's called an address slider. And I'll just let that load up for a second there. there's other things you can do, like with navigation, if we want to just copy the address, set a private label, which we'll do in a second. And so here on the on this address slider, one of the cool things that we do is we show a bit more details about that address. So for example, hey, what NFTs does this address own? Berlage.eth, interesting. Just some random things here. I can see some previous transactions that took place just for that address. And some other powerful information, hey, when was this address active? First transaction they did was February 5th, last transaction, February 26th. Also, one of our more premium features, functionalities, we actually attach a risk score to crypto addresses. If I can show you a bit later, if it's something, an illicit address tagged to illicit activity, we'll show that here. Okay, great. So some of the information you can see here about this address, try and figure out, hey, who's this censored token thing? Well, something interesting is you can see the funds coming into this address come from a bunch of, just different addresses here. Arcolex at like 50% of the funds, or a lot of the funds. And then all the funds went out to this one donation address. So what we can do, another interesting thing we can do, is let's expand it out. Let's see one hop incoming to see, hey, where did those funds come from? What are these addresses here? And there we go. Now we can start to get a mapping of like, hey, where did these funds come from? And you can see a lot of ENS addresses are sending funds into this one address here. And click on a lot of them. They kind of take place September 7th. The one set of funds, the one transaction, the lump sum, 670 ETH that they sent out to donate was done on February 26th. So it looks like, so we can expand this out even further. Right now, as a default, we only show the top 10 addresses for incoming or outgoing. But we can go up to like 100 addresses. We just don't do that as a default because, again, we want to keep this visual, fairly clean, so it's not getting too complicated. And we just wait a second here. That should come up. Yeah, you can start see like there's quite a lot of addresses there. We just did the top 50, but you can even do 100. And so it looks like this is probably a syndicate or a DAO. It's a list of like all these ENS addresses, digitalunderground.eth, and all these different guys. It looks like they made a bunch of donations around. They kind of pooled their funds together and then made a big master donation to the Ukraine government. I'm just going to undo that to clean it up a bit. So you can kind of see like how powerful, I've just done a few clicks and you can kind of see already like how powerful breadcrumbs can be. Where does the Ukraine government send their funds out to? Well, okay, most of it goes to this address, but then they actually pull their funds back to this address. Well, what's this? Let's click on here. Now, we have quite a lot of crypto addresses that are identified. We have a great data, team of data scientists. And okay, so this is kuna.io. It's a crypto exchange. I'm pretty sure it's, in Eastern Europe. So that's probably how the Ukraine government liquidates their funds, all these donations that have come in, and it's in the millions of dollars. Cool. So yeah, we're already starting to see like a bit of a picture of, the Ukraine government's donation address. One other interesting feature that is extremely important that we try to show people to get value out of this tool. Let's say you know who the owner of this address is. It's John's address. Well, you can set a private label. You can set it privately to only me or people on your team. You have a business plan, it's for people on your team. And so the value in this is anytime you have like a graph or investigation in the future, this will always come up as John's address, as opposed to like 0x555. So it's another data point that really helps with being able to make sense of a story of what happened. Cool. So right now, I looked it up on Ethereum, and this is like the main currency on the Ethereum blockchain. But one of the powerful things about breadcrumbs, and because we started with ICOs, started with like trying to solve my own personal problem with ICOs, so we support, you saw we already support NFTs. Well, hey, guess what? We support all ERC20 tokens on top of Ethereum, on top of Polygon, and on top of Ronin. So why don't we see like, people made donations to the Ukraine government also in USDC. So let's see what that's all about. Let's see, who made those donations. So what you do is come here to set filters. And, some of our more premium plans, you can filter out the data on the graph by dates. But in this example, I just want to see like who made donations in USDC. And this is always kind of a funny one is who, maybe if you want to put in the chat box, if you can kind of guess who made the greatest donation in USDC to the Ukraine government. Okay, so what I'm going to do is select USDC and hide the ETH transactions. Okay, so we'll click apply. And now we're just isolating, transactions on the graph just by USDC. Great. And so this is always a funny story. This is why we love showing this, is because the largest donation came from an exploit, actually. So like funds that were taken from the Beanstalk exploiter, they used a flash loan. Oh, Circle. Oh yeah. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay there. So yeah, someone thought it might be Circle. And that's always the guess that people make, is because Circle are the people who created USDC. So I don't know, maybe they're a bit further down here. But yeah, and so someone who exploited a smart contract actually donated 250,000, USDC. It's a good chunk. On April 17, so it's a bit of a Robin Hood there, I guess you could say. I don't know how the Beanstalk folks feel about that. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of neat. One of the other kind of neat things, I'm just gonna undo that. We have this handy undo button here on the top right. One of the other cool things we do is we actually keep track of all the ERC20 tokens that an address has ever transacted with. So you can just come here to set filters and just click on the more ERC20 tokens. And this list here shows like, all the tokens that people have donated to the Ukraine government. There's quite a lot here. 1inch, Decentralization. I hope they liquidate these pretty quickly. Okay, yeah, there's one that's kind of funny. It's UST. You guys are familiar with the UST one. Before the collapse, just gonna scroll down here and find it. Okay, yeah, Ocean Protocol, some Aave. Cool. Yeah, some token. Well, we'll go with some of the Shiba Inu because it's showing up here. So where do you think they, the Ukraine, like, I don't think that crypto exchange supports, Shiba Inu tokens. So we're going to see what the Ukraine government does with Shiba Inu tokens. And actually, let's see who made donations with Shiba Inu tokens. So yeah, it looks like, some users of Binance, just some other random addresses here. Looks like these addresses hold a lot of Shiba Inu. Actually, looks like the Ukraine government is still holding on to some Shiba Inu as well. A lot of it. So they actually use a different exchange. They use gate.io. And you can see here over time, yeah, they liquidated about $1,500 worth of Shiba Inu, 59 billion Shiba Inu. When was this? Yeah, this is all like March 4th. Oh yeah, and this was the Terra USD. So somebody, you know, they received donations of like $1,200 in Terra USD, and thankfully they liquidated it before, you know, the peg on Terra USD went from $1 down to like 0. So, you know, this is kind of a quick journey into like how powerful breadcrumbs can be, you know, just from Ethereum to tokens to you know, all the different, hell, you can even show like multiple tokens in one graph. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, now we're getting some of the color in there, you know, a bit of the blue and the yellow mixed in. There's some wrapped ETH in there somewhere as well. Looks like it went from, you know, this is a Binance deposit address. Cool, that's that main John address. Well, the one that we labeled as John. I'm gonna unlabel that now. So this is, you know, already now, you know, in the last, you know, few minutes of showing you guys around this tool, this is already a lot further than, you know, most people get without a tutorial. And so you can see right away there's quite a lot of powerful features and functionality you can get out of it. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm going to do here is just take a bit of a break from showing you around breadcrumbs, and I want to share with you guys just kind of a cool little story from you know, back in the day of my journey in crypto. And I'm not sure if anybody's ever seen this before. Maybe if you can put it in the chat box. This is, can you guys see this here? What do you think this is? You know, there's a bit of a QR code here, a little piggy bank. Yeah. Okay. So one other kind of clue is, you know, inside of this guy is a little piggy bank. So this is actually what's called a Bitcoin piggy bank. It was kind of a gift I received back in the day from chain.com. And the QR code here is my public key. And the oh, is that a crypto allowance bank? Yeah, you're kind of close. And so this is my public key. And on the inside, you know, kind of like if you put coins in a piggy bank, you would have, you know, you'd have to break the piggy. You'd have to kill the piggy to like, yeah, actually it'd be kind of cool to put a lightning node in here. But, you know, in order to get my money out, I'd have to kill the piggy. I'd have to break it open and get the piece of paper, which has the private key inside. So I've had this for many years. You know, the small amount of Bitcoin that's in there is accumulated over the years. And so, yeah, that's kind of a quick interlude. So I'm going to share with you guys a bit more of breadcrumbs here. What else was there? Oh yes, the coolest thing is, of course, the Pathfinder. Has anybody ever heard of the Pathfinder? This is our most recent addition. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is bring up a little crypto address here. So I'll give you a bit of a backstory of what happens. Back in, I think it was early April, late March, about $600 million worth of crypto was stolen from Axie Infinity. You know, it was stolen from their bridge. That's this bridge right here. And, you know, it came out later that it was actually the Lazarus group, the, you know, hacking group. Like a cool automatic connect the dots. Yeah. Yeah. You're onto it. You're onto, you know, where we're going here. So to continue the story, you know, there's the Ronin Bridge. I'll just click on the path here. And oh yeah, so it was March 30th, March 23rd. Okay, so they stole, let's see, 173,000 ETH. So that's $500 million, you know, on that day of trading. It was like $500 million worth of crypto. And then also 25 million USDC. Looks like they stole a token as well. I guess for good measure. And so if you're this hacking group, like, you know, at some point, you're gonna steal $500 million worth of crypto. Like at some point, you gotta convert it into fiat, right? And the only way you can do that is by putting it into some sort of crypto exchange or something like that, right? It's not like you can just you know, meet somebody at a coffee shop with a USB key and be like, hey, you know, can you give me a briefcase full of $500 million and here's the USB key. And so, you know, if they're going to try to put it onto some sort of a crypto exchange, they can't. Like it's, you know, it's such a large amount. All the exchanges just, you know, they're all watching these funds, you know, in real time. So they're going to try to do whatever they can to freeze these funds if it ever goes onto an exchange. And so the strategy here of what the group did was, well, first thing you do, yeah, okay, you break it up into chunks. I'm just going to expand this out a bit further. Let's maybe do 20 addresses here on the outgoing. Okay. And so, yeah, it's quite a lot. So this is a strategy called smurfing. You know, you essentially create a whole bunch of different addresses. So they're you know, spreading it out to a bunch of different addresses. And at some point, they're going to want to put it through, you know, the mixer that everybody knows called Tornado Cash. Okay, and so, you know, I could just keep manually going out and you know, see how many hops out. Eventually, it gets to Tornado Cash. Or we could just save ourselves a bit of time and use what's called the Pathfinder. So the Pathfinder essentially automates. It'll automatically find the paths between two crypto addresses. So if I want to find, okay, well, it went from, you know, the Lazarus group, the Lazarus group's address. We're going to put in, I'm going to pop in here this is like the main tornado cache address. I'm just going to pop that in. Let's say, okay, what's the max hops? Let's say maybe 9. You know, the higher the plan you get, the more radius you get in how far you can search out. So let's just click expand and count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, there we go. So that was pretty quick, 4 seconds. And you can see shortest path. Yeah, they just they went straight into Tornado Cash. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something even cooler. Let's expand this guy out. And yeah, you're starting to see the patterns here, aren't you? It's like all roads lead to Tornado Cash. And yeah, basically every you know, address that they sent it out to, that they spread it out to, it's all eventually going to go back into Tornado Cash. And so we're talking, you know, $500 million worth of ETH, pretty much all at the same time, was flowing into Tornado Cash. You know, we can, yeah. Oh my God, exactly. I know it's a lot of money. right? And so if you click on any path, you can see it's just 100 ETH, 100 ETH. It's like they got somebody just in there, deposit, send transaction, send transaction. You know, and I'm only just kind of showing you like a few of them, but you know, kind of going through this exercise, you can see like how powerful this tool can also be, and you know, just visualizing an entire story in one picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a bit of the education stuff. And so with the education stuff, I want to talk a bit about Tornado Cash. The reason I showed this example is just to kind of demonstrate, like, you know, it was really this one event here of $500 million, you know, stolen, went through Tornado Cash. And so, of course, the big story in August was, you know, Tornado Cash, this open source software, was actually blacklisted. This mixer is blacklisted. You know, OFAC, the U.S. government, you know, has made it illegal for any U.S. persons or entity to transact with Tornado Cash. You know, and a lot of it came from, yeah, that big hack in March and April. So some interesting things. I just want to share facts here. I don't want to get into the debate, you know, of the two sides. Is this okay or not? But I just kind of want to share some facts. So to talk about the impact of what happens with Tornado Cash. Now, Tornado Cash, it's a mixer. It's a very good quality mixer, you know, like the funds go in. When people take the funds out, you can't, you know, you lose the trail. You lose the trail. Where was I here? Yeah, you lose the trail. Like if we expand this out, it just, you know, the Lazarus Group's funds, they get mixed in with thousands of other people's funds. There's just so many people pulling funds into here. And then when the funds come out, it's all mixed up. It's like a washing machine, right? That's the money laundering. So here, I'm going to show you guys, you know, this is kind of the impact of what happens. So Tornado Cash, the GitHub, you know, the GitHub for Tornado Cash got shut down. You know, all the open source code, you know, got taken away. And, you know, you got to understand, GitHub, it's a US company, and they got to interpret the law. So their interpretation of the law is, you know, for them to be able to service this organization, is probably best. You know, it's probably their lawyers telling them like, hey, you gotta take down that page. Otherwise, you're aiding this sanctions entity or sanctions code or whatever it is. So yeah, personnel, it's so the creators of the software, they had their accounts shut down. The USDC, so the USDC contracts, the Tornado Cash contracts were banned from USDC. So USDC, the tokens that run on top of Ethereum, it's like technology-wise, tech-wise, like USDC tokens cannot go in or out of Tornado Cash. These companies, you know, Infura Alchemy. So Infura Alchemy, they provide third-party APIs like REST APIs, you know, for developers to be able to interact with smart contracts. So it looks like they're, you know, they had to cut off API calls to those Tornado Cash addresses. And then, of course, Tornado Cash ETH, so this is sort of some of the impacts. One of the other interesting stories that kind of came out of this is, you know, because we're working in a world of decentralization, right? Like these are smart contracts. These Tornado Cash addresses, they're all smart contracts, right? They're sitting on 15,000 computers around the world. It's like you can't just turn off a switch to a smart contract. So it's still possible for people, you know, including the North Koreans, whoever, to still interact with them. And so as long as you know how to use the software, you set up an Ethereum node, people can still interact with these. And I'm going to show you the impact. So this is kind of interesting. If I scroll down here, yeah. So this one here, this graph here, let's look by time. So this was around the time that, where are we here? Yeah, April 4th. So around here, large chunk of ETH was kind of deposited into Tornado Cash. And then let's see, first week of August, boom, nobody's depositing funds into Tornado Cash anymore. And so that's kind of the impact. You can really see a significant drop in usage of Tornado Cash. But one other interesting story, and feel free as I go along, ask some questions or let us know, if you need some clarification. On this, we're going to make some time in the next, 5 minutes or so if you guys got questions. One of the other interesting stories, and it's really important to highlight this, I think it's hilarious, is this tweet here. Okay. So what actually happens, right? We're working in a world of decentralization, but the law in the US basically says US persons or entities cannot transact with sanctioned entities. Therefore, US people cannot interact with Tornado Cash because it's sanctioned, right? But it's decentralized, and so in the nature of crypto, if somebody sends you crypto, it's not like you can stop it, right? It's if somebody sends you crypto, you can't turn it away. That's just how like Ethereum, Bitcoin, that's how these transactions work. So somebody put 0.1 ETH through one of the Tornado Cash addresses and just started sending it out to from Tornado Cash to celebrities like Jimmy Fallon, Ben Horowitz. I think Shaquille O'Neal was on here as well. And I'm sure a lot of these entities, obviously they're U.S. persons. I think Brian Armstrong, founder of Coinbase, is on here too. And so what do? Like a lot of them, they receive cash from a sanctioned entity. Well, what do you do? So my guess, this is all like a gray area. It's all new world here. So my guess is, if one of these entities receive 0.1 ETH from Tornado Cash, probably the best thing they could do is just send it back if they can. But a lot of them are, they're probably not even that technical. They're probably getting into NFTs or doing something interesting. So they probably don't even notice that's, 0.1 ETH came into it. So, here's a question for everybody. Like, what if they use the 0.1 ETH in the future to, I don't know, buy some Bitcoin or spend it on a dinner? Then did they break the law? So this is also why I want to really bring up the Tornado Cash episode. It's really, it's the first time in history. Like there's a lot of legal questions, a lot of, a lot of just gray area that, and uncertainty, that, well, am I breaking the law? Do I now need to follow like everything that's sanctions? Like, what do I do? It's not like there's a guidebook or a instruction book on like, what do you do if a sanctioned address sends you funds? So these are all questions, and this is like how Wild West, perfect example of like how Wild West crypto is. Yeah. So what else do we got here? It's funny, like I tried looking up Tornado Cash. Before the sanction occurred, you could just load up their website. And their website it basically has a nice little front end that lets you interact with the Tornado Cash smart contracts. But as you can see, it's down now. So what do people do? what do people do? So a lot of people, Tornado Cash. So if I look this up here, you can see like it's software, right? People can just copy it and just make it available for other people to use. So that includes like the front end website. So here, like you can see somebody, Tornado Cash privacy solution. You know, this person, whoever put this up, is probably not at all related to, you know, the people who made the software. Was it audited? Okay, yeah, it's really important stuff. So the reason I'm showing this to you is because, you know, it's a decentralized world. So anybody can just take a copy of what that Tornado Cash front end website looked like and you know, run it themselves. So yeah, that's kind of a quick overview of Tornado Cash. It's quite impactful, and a lot of stuff happens, you know. Still, even to this day, people are still you know, have a bit of a ripple effect. They're trying to wrap their heads around how to use, you know, how to live in a world with the sanctions Tornado Cash. All right. You know, it's funny, an hour of just talking and give me one sec here. Cool. So one last thing I'd like to share with you guys, you know, and feel free to ask questions along the way in the chat box. Okay, so we got a few more minutes, and what I'll do is I'm going to show you one of our other tools is our monitoring tool. And the idea with the monitoring tool, excuse me, is you know, you can monitor any entity. You want to be able to see all the funds go in and out of an entity. So for example, you know, you can track like multiple crypto addresses in one dashboard, but just keep it simple and easy to understand. In this example here, we'll just track Lauren's crypto address, just some random address I found. And we're going to look up the transaction details. And normally our monitoring tool will just have, you know, these columns here. But our more premium monitoring tool that people use for compliance will actually, we add a risk score. You know, it shows like, how risky is this transaction for being connected to illicit activity? You know, as you scroll down, it's always low risk, low risk. Oh, something is high risk here. Well, why is that? You know, well, the counterparty in the transaction was the Poly network hacker. Oh, that's interesting. Well, you know, they're involved in a hack. So, you know, from here, hey, we got our address slider again. Let's look up a little information about this address. You know, obviously, you know, the most important thing that people like to look up is first transaction, last transaction. As you can see, the score is quite high risk. You know, just with like our Axie Infinity, you know, Lazarus Groups guys, we looked that one up. You can see their risk score is either high or severe. Yeah, severe. So that's the highest level here. They're just using that address for moving funds around. So yeah, this address here, this is probably around the time of the Poly network hack. And, you know, it was from August 9th to, oh, it's actually even a month ago, they were moving funds around. We've got some NFTs, probably people sending NFTs to this Poly Network hacker. If you're not familiar with the Poly Network hack, it was about a year ago, and they stole, I think it was about, yeah, it was like $600 million worth of crypto, and then the next day they actually gave the funds back. They gave a lot of those funds back. So it was quite a story in crypto illicit activity history. Cool. And so this is our monitoring tool for being able, just kind of a quick preview of how that looks. So what I'm going to do, we got a couple minutes here. Anybody has some last minute questions? I see a quick comment here. Somebody said they've used Pathfinder. Loved it all the way. So I'm appreciative of that and hope it continues to bring you a lot of value. It certainly saves a lot of our users a lot of time. So yeah, just like to wrap it up here. I kind of glossed over a lot of things along the way, but one thing I totally forgot to mention, if you're not familiar with my background, I did get involved with the Rattly back in 2014, and in 2020, we did, my buddy and I, we decided to write a book called Mastering Blockchain. And oh, we do have a quick question here. So what are the potentials for expansion to other chains? Great question. So I'll answer quickly and then we can wrap it up. So yeah, we just added Ronin the beginning of this month, and we're on track to, especially in this fall, we're definitely working towards adding a bunch more blockchains. We recently did a survey on Twitter, to ask the community, because it's really community powered, which blockchain to add next. So we're working on it. We got a couple more in the pipeline, and you should see at least one more by the end of the year for sure in the next couple months. So yeah, we're just gonna wrap it up, and I really want to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in and watches in the future. And we're going to continue doing this every month. It's going to keep getting better and better. And appreciate your time. And I think one of the classic words we can always say is keep crumbing. Keep crumbing through crypto. So we appreciate your efforts, and we appreciate the power of this community. Thanks, guys. And I always like to say lemon tree when I wrap it up. So we'll close it up now.